How are you? Well, I'm so excited to be here with the Lieutenant Governor here at Versailles, one of the landmarks of the Cuban community here in Miami. And one of the reasons that we wanted to come here is to highlight the left-leaning lurch of the Democrat Party towards socialism. And there's no community that understands that better than the Cuban community here in Miami. Many of whom fled the Castro regime because they knew what socialism means. It's not a buzzword to them. It's something that's frightening. And when you hear Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Democrats embracing a government takeover of healthcare, of education, of redistribution, there's no community that can more successfully and more poignantly articulate what that means to life and to the American dream than the Cuban community. So as I've talked to people around this restaurant today, some of them have said to me it's frightening to hear what's happening. They came here for the American dream, and under President Trump, Hispanic unemployment has gone from 7.6% to 3.3%, the lowest in history. We've added, just in Florida, over 436,000 new jobs. You've seen the Hispanic community thrive, building new small businesses, over 4 million. It's over $700 billion of our economy. Women own 2 million of the small businesses, which is 500,000 jobs that have added to our economy. So this is a community that is thriving under President Trump and his policies, and a community that understands how frightening the Democrats' policies will be for the long-term future of our country. So thank you so much for having me. Do you have anything you wanted to add, Lieutenant Governor?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Ronna for being here. I think the fact that the chair of the RNC that is here in South Florida just really speaks to the importance of what the Latinos for Trump is going to mean for the 2020 election. As we kicked off yesterday, the coalition with the vice president, she couldn't have said it better. Record low unemployment. Home ownership is on the rise. Latino median income is the highest ever. These are all important facts that we need to make sure that the Latino population understands. We're not going to cling to the false narrative of the other side. We're going to make sure that the public understands that a vote for a Democrat is a vote for socialism. And as they say in Spanish, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. And so we don't want to have anything to do with the likes of Bernie Sanders and his failed socialist policies, because we, the Latino community, the Hispanic folks here in South Florida, understand what that means, and that means misery and poverty for all.
Thank you so much. We'll take some questions. Yes, any questions?
What's your counter message for the debates tonight?
Well, we're going to see what happens in the debates, but I do think we're articulating that here today. You are seeing the Democrat Party embrace socialism, government takeover of healthcare, getting rid of private plans for hundreds of millions of Americans, 10 million just here in Florida that would lose their private plans. You're seeing them say, let's take over education. And what happened in Cuba is the same thing. The government took over. They took over lands. It was redistribution. It forced people to flee here to come find the American dream. And we are offering not just proposals, we're offering actual action and things that have taken place under this president, with lower unemployment, with wages on the rise, with so many good things that are happening economically across this country for the Hispanic community, for all communities. So I think that it's a real contrast that we can offer to the voters.
Ronna, do you see sort of a versatile Democratic pool? Because there are the Democratic socialists like Bernie Sanders, but the 20 people who will be in Miami over the next couple of days are not all that.
Well, we're going to see. You know, you've seen Joe Biden come out and say, I'm the most progressive, or I've had the most progressive record of any of these candidates. You've seen them lurching further left. You've seen them embrace Medicare for all. So we'll see if there's division within their party as these two debates unfold. But there is no question that they are embracing more and more government takeover, which, guess what? We know what that means. We know what it meant in Cuba. It means the politicians control everything. They're not endorsing term limits. They're not saying we're going to leave away. We're not going to go away from the power. They want it all in their hands so that they can make the decisions about how Americans live their lives.
So when you go to the other side and you talk for the positive instead of the detraction, what is the government's role in people's lives?
Well, I think we've shown that. Cutting taxes, giving people more of their money to invest in businesses, to do the things that their families want to do, deregulation, getting the government out of business so that businesses can thrive and grow and hire more employees. I mean, it was so burdensome under Obama. So to pull back those regulations, which President has done at a rapid pace, has unleashed our economy. Things like Dodd-Frank, which has allowed Hispanic owners and African-American business owners to get loans to start those small businesses. So those are things that we believe regulation should be limited, but the government shouldn't control everything. And right now, Democrats are saying, we don't just want government to control, the regulatory. We want to take over secondary education. We want to take over your health care. You won't even have your private plans. I mean, it is a total overreach of government that they are proposing. And I think we are for limited government and more autonomy in the hands of the American people so they can realize the American dream through hard work.
Across town, talking about climate change.
Excuse me?
Across town, the Democrats just held a press conference about climate change, saying we're here in Miami, ground zero for sea level rise. Can you talk about how you can address deregulation but still also deal with environmental challenges like climate change and sea level rise, and are those even going to be acknowledged by President Trump?
Well, I'm not going to get into the president's platform and what he's going to be talking about on the campaign trail. But what I will say is having a strong economy allows us to be a leader globally on every issue. And with the Paris Climate Accords, when we were paying countries to be compliant, and when China and India, which have the largest populations, were not involved in that, it's just not something that's going to be feasible. It's got to be a global initiative, and the United States shouldn't handicap its economy when other countries aren't complying at the same level.
A few miles up the road in the Homestead and in Texas, there's the child detention centers. The pictures coming out of there are just awful, I'm sure you can agree. What are your thoughts on all this?
I mean, as a mom, it's horrible to see these kids making this treacherous journey. I think the president said to Congress, you've got 2 weeks to act on this. Remember in January, Nancy Pelosi said, this is a manufactured crisis. Now we all know this is a real crisis. And the president has been asking them for months and months and months to act, and they have not. And so shame on the Democrats by making a political point and saying it was a manufactured crisis and not dialing into the real problem at the border. Nancy Pelosi walked out on a meeting with Secretary Nielsen. When Secretary Nielsen met with them and said, these are the issues we are having at our border, she said, I do not believe you, and she walked out of the meeting. That's how little attention she was giving to this issue. So right now, put the partisanship aside. Congress, do your job. Come to the president and let's find a way to create humanitarian aid for these people. And at the same time, fix our asylum problems and fix our borders so that we are not a magnet for people trying to come to this country and putting children in harm's way, family in harm's way. And I think we all would agree that we do not want to see families and children in these types of situations.
One more, guys.
It's McDaniel. That's okay.
What is the Republican Party's message on climate change? You're here in Florida. This is a crucial state for either candidate to win. How do you plan to win voters in this state where they're seeing the effects and the impact of climate change?
Well, I think the president is going to come out with his policies and talk about where he stands on these issues. And I'm not going to get ahead of our candidate or our nominee as he's going forward. But what I did say is having a strong economy and being a leader is going to help us engage in climate change in a way that we can lead on an issue, because we know China's not going to do it. We know India's not going to do it. We're not going to solve it if the countries that have these booming populations are not engaging at the same level. So it's not going to be done by putting our economy in harm's way and not giving us the ability to be strong leaders on these
But does it
issues.
need to be addressed on a global scale?
I think it's a global issue. I think it would have to be done in a global issue, and I don't think you can hamstring our economy at the expense of other countries that aren't doing the same things for the environment.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody.